Another edition and the very first one for this week. Welcome to Frontier Opening Bell. I'm Temple Ashaju. Ali Kansaju, founder of Reached Frontiers Management in Nairobi, Kenya, joins us. Thank you for coming through. Bosin Omofaye, our executive editor here at Frontier Africa Reports, also joins us on the show this morning. We'll look at the market status. How did they end for last week? The Nigerian Stock Exchange was marginally down weekly by some 13 basis points. The BRVM Stock Exchange was also marginally down 0.01% on Friday alone. We've got the Egyptian Stock Exchange jumping by more than 2% on a week-to-date basis, and the Nairobi Stock Exchange fell by some 1.3% weekly, and then the Johannesburg Stock Exchange revved up some 0.20% on Friday. Let's now look at what the Eastern African headlines have got to serve us this Monday morning. Kenya's got its business activity shrinking by sharply to 50.6 in March, and that's all the way from 50.9 in the month of February. Kenya's budget deficit to contract to 7.5% of GDP in 2021-2022. You've got KenGen bagging some 440 million Kenyan shillings geothermal well drilling in Ethiopia. Total signs deal with Uganda on East Africa oil projects. And of course, the Bank of Tanzania says its economy is to grow by 5.7% in 2021 on global trade investment. I'll come to you with these headlines, Ali. How tradable are these headlines today?
So let me start with the big headline. We saw the visit of the Tanzanian president yesterday to Uganda to meet with President Museveni and sign the pipeline agreement, which has been, something that they've been looking to conclude for some time now. I think it's significant that the new president visited Uganda first. I think it's significant that they've both shown momentum in this direction. The Total CEO said he expected first oil out of the Lake Albertine Basin in 2025. So after being in the slow lane for quite a while, we're seeing significant momentum in this oil situation. Kenya, of course, will be disappointed because the pipeline was, Kenya was trying to wrestle that pipeline through Kenya and into the port of Mombasa. But essentially, this deal is a done deal. There was some interesting signaling going on yesterday. I noticed the Tanzanian president wore her mask to the visit with Museveni, but then took it off when she got back to Dar es Salaam. But make no mistake, this is a significant development, especially in the context of Total's challenges in Cabo Delgado, where they've got this massive gas project going on, which has hit a raging insurgency. So good developments over the weekend in that regard. How tradable that is, in the scheme of things, it's a small piece of the Total portfolio, but it's a big piece of Uganda's potential GDP going forward. And for Tanzania as well, it's quite material. Going back to your top headline, business activity shrinking to 50.6 in March. Above 50 is still an expansion. Below 50 is contraction. So it wasn't as strong as it was in the previous month. And I think this is a reflection of our caseload climbing in March, which is now ebbing a little bit. So we hope to see a more positive scenario around the COVID cases, which hopefully will mean that Nairobi and the 5 counties which have been placed under curfew will find a more relaxed regime. Nairobi is probably 40 to 45% of the country's GDP. So you can imagine when you put it under curfew, you're slowing the country's economy right down. So keep an eye on that. Kenya's budget deficit to contract 7.5% of GDP. This is always Kenya's story. We're always bullish about the contraction of the budget deficit, but we tend not to deliver. We talk the talk, but we don't walk it. The key issue here will be around the price of oil. This is our single biggest expense item every month. If oil remains soft, I can see that number coming together, but if it doesn't, it will be more challenging. KenGen, of course, our big geothermal business, expansion into Ethiopia. This speaks to their expertise and also to the geothermal opportunity in this new green economy world that we live in. Ethiopia's got some very big geothermal resources, and KenGen, its expertise has been called on, and that's, I think, a very positive development.
Thank you for sharing your understanding of these headlines with us, Ali. Bosun, any contributions before we move on to the Western African headlines?
I think I would just want to, Ali, if Ali could give me a second, about quite a number of corporate earnings are coming through, and numbers from the Kenyan. So what's your outlook for the market this week for Kenya?
So, Bosun, we've had the big banks report. Safaricom reported earlier. So in terms of reporting, about 80% of the outstanding value at the stock exchange has essentially reported. So I think a lot will depend on Safaricom because of its market capitalization. It's been bullish. It's really underpinned the performance of the stock exchange in what has been quite a torrid time. For this week, I would see us sort of, flatlining. I don't see any big moves either way. A lot of money has been sucked into this interest-free bond, which was heavily oversubscribed. And investors continue to be quite defensive and prefer to clip a coupon gross over 12% than necessarily start to play in the stock market for now. But of course, that can change. But for now, I don't see that changing at this moment.
Thank you very much.
All right, and thank you so much for that, Ali. Moving now to the Western African headlines, where the NIPC in Nigeria is launching a compendium of states investment opportunities today. You've got Coronation Merchant Bank looking to raise 25 billion naira via Series 15 and 16 CP, that's commercial papers. Union Homes REIT proposes 1 naira 86 kobo in dividend for the financial year 2020. Niger borrows 33 billion CFA franc on the UEMOA markets, that's the West African Monetary Union. And of course, the Securities and Exchange Commission of Ghana drafts new guidelines to check investment misappropriations. In Gabon, the BGFI Bank group profit doubles to 44.03 CFA franc as well in 2020, and you've got companies winning big at the BRVM Awards for 2020 on Saturday. That's over the weekend. Bosun?
Yes, thank you so much. I think the NIPC story is one very interesting one that I think everyone should, that caught my attention. And yesterday afternoon, I had a very little telephone conversation with the executive secretary, the head of the NIPC. What this Book of States is all about. It's about trying to market Nigeria from subnationals level, which I think, and she said this is a product of a 5-year, 2017 to 2020, 2021 research work, trying to get all the 36 states of the Federation and the FCT to prepare what you call investment opportunities, their value propositions, the natural resources, whatever you have, so that it's easier. Because what she told me, Yewande Sadiku, what she said was that, look, when foreign investors come and they ask questions about, we want to invest in XY part of Nigeria, they want to invest in Nigeria as a country, as a sovereign, but again, it boils down to a subnational. So you don't just invest in the air, you have to go to a particular state, to a particular local government. And sometimes they find it very difficult to know what is on the ground, to tell the foreign investors what is available in whatever state and what are the value proposition. So being an investment information gateway for the Federal Republic of Nigeria, they put this particular compendium together, which, according to her, every state governor signed off on. So it wasn't just a research work, but it's based on what the state governments themselves put together. Then they worked together with the 36 states of the Federation, and they were able to put it together. That event is coming up later soon. We'll have Yewande Sadiku on our TV show later tonight to provide more details into that. But if you look
just before you move on that, my question to that, or as a follow-up, is that Nigeria is yet to start practicing true federalism. And in recent time, we've had questions around how you can market these subnational governments, but at the end of the day, how much of independence do they have to implement what has been marketed?
Yes, you have to. There are constitutional issues here. There are structural issues that you have to deal with at the political level. But the first important is that, look, if you know what is on the ground and you can talk to investors, then you know what federal agency to talk to. For example, if a foreign investor wants to do something in Zamfara State or in Kogi State or in Enugu State or in Ekiti State, knowing what is on the ground in the first place, I'm sure you know this, information is power. Once you know first what you can do and what you cannot do, if you know what you can do, what falls under the state government's purview and what falls under federal, then it makes it easy to know who to talk to. But in a situation in which you don't even have any idea who is involved, if an investor had come into the country, go straight to the state government, talk and start hitting boots on the ground, then the federal authority steps up and say, hey folks, what are you doing over there? You didn't tell us. Sorry, you don't have an approval to do this. Then you all go back to, oh, I didn't know. So the first thing is knowledge, information. Empower foreign investors with the right information. Then they will know whether they need to go to XY agency in Abuja or they need to go straight to the state capital to talk to the state governor or to talk to someone else on the ground. So I think this is a cutting razor, as it were. It doesn't resolve all the problems we have, but it's a cutting razor, as it were. In other words, you make it easy for everyone coming to Nigeria to know exactly what he wants to do, who is responsible, who has oversight over this is with federal, this is with National Assembly, this is what of that. Then it makes it a whole lot easier.
Right. Thank you so much. Well, let's move on with the other West African headlines you've got there, a couple before you. Bosin, have you got any comments on them?
Yeah, the BRVM Awards, I don't know anyone still holding awards, but it was a beautiful. I have a whole lot of pictures on our Twitter handle about the companies that won the awards at the BRVM, which was a Saturday evening, 7:30 in Abidjan. And I think it was quite a very beautiful event. I saw the pictures, and then I felt the days when we could all still move together and have these various Pan-African awards. I'm sure Ali had attended quite a number of them. The African Bankers Award at EFDB, at the Afrexim Bank, and you can see a whole lot of banks and issuers within our continent standing up for honors for doing very great job on the continent. And I think those awards by BRVM, I commend the BRVM Stock Exchange for doing that for the Pan-West African Francophone speaking exchanges. The earnings from Gabon BGFI Bank is also very big. There's a whole lot about these earnings that are coming through within the current earnings season. Now, Ghana making new guidelines on investment misappropriations. I'm sure Ali knows this issue about the SECs are all keeping an eyes out there right now, because if you're an issuer, you come to the market and you misapply investors' funds, is a big issue. I'm sure, Ali, I'm not sure if the citing investment issue in Kenya has been fully resolved.
On that point, currently it hasn't. I mean, citing have been aggressively responding to challenges from investors who particularly are looking for their money back. Citing basically cited COVID as a force majeure and said, look, you know, the real estate market is just not moving because of COVID, and until that normalizes, you know, you're locked in for longer. So the capital markets have been quite forthright and looking in quite strongly into these issues. Another issue was a bond issued by, I think it's Real Insurance, where the funds were diverted to South Africa, and the Capital Markets Authority were very unhappy about it. Look, you know, I think our regulatory authorities are becoming more mature. They are, you know, taking their job quite seriously, and we'll continue to see situations like this in East Africa and in West Africa.
Thank you very much for that, Ali. Moving on now to the Southern African market, where the SA Reserve Bank chief completes his 3-year term at the IMFC. That's the advisory board of the IMF. Pick and Pay reports 4 billion rand loss in sales on booze ban. Trustco board welcomes Richard Mani as new member. Namibia private sector Credit is up by 0.76% to 105.6 billion Namibian dollars in February this year. In Zimbabwe, you've got the Tobacco Industry and Marketing Board expecting outputs to rise by 9% to 200,000 tons this year, even though they say smokers are liable to die young. Ali, how much can we expect from Zimbabwe in terms of the tobacco outputs expectations?
So it's interesting. I've been looking quite closely at Zimbabwe.
Because smoking away to GDP.
There's a lot of optimism around the Zimbabwean economy. The weather has been optimal. They're expecting the farm economy to outperform this year. Tobacco obviously is a mainstay of that, and they're expecting a good performance there. So it'll be very interesting to see how Zimbabwe performs this year. I mean, you know, they had some very big numbers. They've scaled those back, but they're still looking pretty upbeat for this year, and I think correctly so. But obviously bouncing from a bombed out situation previously. To go to your other headlines, look, I was looking at the emerging market currencies again, and you know, the Indian rupee has fallen out of bed. The Brazilian real is down about 10% this year. Essentially, the emerging market currencies have been hit quite hard. And, you know, the Rand was a bullish outlier, in fact, and has been outperforming all of them this year. So just keep an eye on the Rand in that context, because the asset class looks quite weak. The Rand looks strong within the asset class. With respect to the South African Reserve Bank chief, you know, I listened to him at the African Development Bank economic release. And I must say, I was really impressed. I thought he spoke a lot of sense. He was speaking in particular about debt forgiveness and explaining that so much of South African debt is held by local institutions, and therefore debt forgiveness impacts the financial sector directly. But beyond that, I've been seriously impressed with him. And if I were the IMF, I'd be looking to give him another 3-year term. Pick and Pay, 4 billion Rand loss. This is all about the booze ban. You know, in South Africa, there's a very high correlation between drinking and hospital visits. And when the COVID was raging, the government sought to reduce pressure on hospitals by banning booze, and that's obviously hit Pick and Pay. Pick and Pay will be hoping for a quick recovery now that caseloads is below 1,000. And this was all without any pharmaceutical intervention. We saw that massive surge, which peaked in February. And now there are very few cases in South Africa, notwithstanding the concern that most of these vaccines seem not to be able to deal with the South African variant. And then Namibia, we've spoken about the softness in the economy, private sector credit running at 0.76. You know, just to give you a comparison, here in Kenya, we're still in double digits. So, you know, this is a very, very soft economy, very soft private sector at the moment in Windhoek.
Thank you so much, Ali, for all that. Bosun, any comments on the rest of the headlines in West and South of an African market before going to North?
I think Ali fairly covered these numbers. I'm just looking at some of the issues around the South Africa's. We'll get more from South Africa's economic data this week to find out about the state of health. But I think Namibia is beginning to come up in the news in more recent times since this engagement with the IMF. So Ali touched on that. And I really like that Namibia often tend to get stepped over when you discuss Southern Africa. So I like this news that this country is beginning to get a whole lot of frontline attention. We're bringing that up on a daily basis. And with this latest engagement with the IMF, we hope we'll hear more of their news and how they're making economic progress in that part of Africa. This was one of the stronger. You talk about Zimbabwe, you talk about Namibia, you talk about Mozambique and all of that. We need this news. We need a whole lot more of this information about the African states so that the rest of Africa and the rest of the world can see what's going on in this country, no matter how small or looking isolated as they were in some cases. We're leaving no one behind.
Namibia is one of the countries with the latest cake from the IMF. Everybody wants to have a slice of that cake, boss, and that's it.
Yeah, but you know, the Kenyans are fighting over their own cake, by the way. They haven't really decided, but it's a little bit quiet. I don't want to go into that this morning.
It must be a very tasty cake, actually. North African headlines where Egypt's annual inflation inched up to 4.8% in March. National Bank of Greece is to exit Egyptian market. Qatar National Bank, Al-Ali, reports 5% rise in profit for first quarter 2021. You've got bottled water company Leyux Minerals posting some 58.8 million dirham in terms of losses here now. And you have the Tunisian Stock Exchange is saying International Union of Banks is to hold the OGM Ordinary General Meeting come April the 16th. IMF revises Middle East North Africa growth up to 4% in 2021. Financing needs covered $919 billion. That's for 2021 to 2022. Bosun, let me hear your thoughts before going back to Ali to finish up for us.
Sorry, I think in the manner of speaking, the North African guys are making some very big headway. But the story from IMF about Middle East and North Africa, the reason why we put that up again is because of the growth and the financing needs. Because when you look at North Africa, it has your Morocco, Algeria, Egypt, Libya, all of them in that basket with the Middle East together. So we keep an eye on that at all times. No matter how small it is, when you look at Egypt's annual inflation to 4.8% in March, again, this will come about from around the core inflation, food inflation. There's a whole lot of issue with food, world food production, according to the FAO and according to US US Department of Agriculture data that we get on a regular basis. So, but it's not something so scary, at least for now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Bosun. Ali, we've got inflation ticking up now in Egypt. Is this like a cause for concern, please? Beg your pardon.
Yes, well, I think as Bosun said, I think it's all about food inflation, which has been ticking up globally, and Egypt is a very big importer of food. Predominantly from Russia and Ukraine are the biggest suppliers. So, you know, this is something we've got to keep an eye on. It is of some concern because of their relationship with Russia, which is a very strong one. They're never going to have a supply issue, but obviously they're going to have to pay up if prices continue to increase. I was surprised that National Bank of Greece is looking to exit the Egyptian market. Egypt and Greece have been enjoying quite a rapprochement of late as they look to exploit opportunities in the Mediterranean. So I found that an interesting development. And then finally, Qatar National Bank reporting a 5% rise in profit for Q1. Qatar obviously now has normalized relations with Saudi Arabia, which I think was causing a lot of friction within the economy. And now that you've got that out of the way, you'd expect the Qatari banks to start to perform post rapprochement.
Thank you very much, Ali Kansachi, for your analysis this morning on the show. He is the founder of Rich Frontiers Management in Nairobi, Kenya. Thanks a great deal. Bosun Omofa, I appreciate your editorial considerations this morning as well. This has been the first edition of the show Frontier Opening Bell this week. I'm Temple Oshaju. Thank you for listening. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.